Good morning. BBC research of NHS hospitals across the UK suggests that only those in Scotland have, at times, met A&E targets for patient waiting times since early last year. The analysis suggests the performance of many hospitals across the UK, measured against key health service targets, has deteriorated significantly during the past 4 years. In that time, on occasions, Scotland has met the A&E target for 4-hour waits, while Wales and Northern Ireland failed to meet any of their main performance standards. There's been a huge drop in the number of young people treated for mental health problems in non-specialist hospital wards. The Scottish Children's Services Coalition has welcomed the fall, but says too many are still being cared for in units not designed for their age group. 2 years ago, admissions to non-specialist wards were at an all-time high. There are 54 specialist beds in the whole of Scotland, currently none north of Dundee.
We're not necessarily saying that a child being admitted to a general adult ward is a bad thing. It could be the right thing for them in the circumstances, but they've got a higher chance of getting appropriate care in a specialist unit.
The world's first floating wind farm will be formally opened off the east coast of Scotland later. 5 giant turbines have been installed about 15 miles from Peterhead. They should generate enough electricity for around 20,000 homes. The internationally renowned architect behind the new V&A Museum in Dundee will visit the site later today. Kengo Kuma's building on the city's waterfront is due to be completed by the end of the year, with the museum opening next summer. It'll tell the story of Scottish design and host visiting exhibitions. It's hoped the £80 million building will attract thousands of visitors. Now let's get the breakfast time weather. It's over to Gillian for the Outlook. The headlines on Reporting Scotland this Wednesday lunchtime. Progress in the provision of appropriate treatment for young people with mental health problems, but campaigners say not nearly enough. And thousands of Celtic fans make the trip to Munich for tonight's Champions League match. Good afternoon. There's been a big drop in the number of young people treated for mental health problems in non-specialist hospital wards. The Scottish Children's Services Coalition has welcomed the decrease, but says far too many are still being cared for in units not designed for their age group. Here's our Home Affairs correspondent, Reva Alderson.
3 years ago, Ryan, who's autistic and has learning difficulties, was sectioned and admitted to hospital.
Hiya, pal. How are you? How are you?
He's 16 now and in a residential school and keeps in regular contact with his grandmother. He was in hospital for 11 months in an adult ward, which had to be cleared of its other patients.
We had no peer group. It was just staff, and sometimes it was 3 to 1, sometimes it was 4 to 1. He would come home to visit for a few hours, and it was nice for him because then he was having family contact, but then straight back into the unit with him being on his own again.
Ryan's case isn't unique. There aren't sufficient beds for young people who need hospital treatment for mental illness. 2 years ago, more than 200 children were admitted to non-specialist facilities. A year later, the figure was 135. In the most recent 12 months, that figure's almost halved. The Commission says it's pleased the trend's in the right direction, and it says some young people may be admitted to non-specialist units for a short time to allow them to be assessed closer to home.
We're very pleased to see this, because whilst it's not necessarily a bad thing, quite often it means that they don't get access to the specialist skills required for assessment. It means they don't get access to proper educational activities, and they might not get access to age-appropriate activities.
Children's charities say the report shows more must be done to ensure young people like Ryan are treated appropriately. The government says most children are treated in the community, with very few requiring hospital admission. Reva Alderson, Reporting Scotland.
A mother accused of murdering her baby daughter told relatives she wanted to have an abortion when she found out she was expecting a girl, the High Court in Glasgow has heard. Sadia Ahmed is said to have cried a lot and said she wanted a son. Ms Ahmed from Drumchapel in Glasgow is accused of smothering 14-month-old Inaya Ahmed by placing a cushion over her face and shaking her. She denies the charge and the trial continues. The SNP has said unpublished UK government research shows Scotland could be one of two areas most severely hit by a so-called hard Brexit if there is no deal with the EU. During Prime Minister's questions, Theresa May and the SNP leader at Westminster, Ian Blackford, clashed on the issue. Well, our political correspondent David Porter joins us from outside the Commons. David, ill-tempered exchanges once again.
Indeed, another noisy and lengthy session of Prime Minister's question time has come to an end this lunchtime, and once again Brexit was to the fore in the chamber behind me, and as you may be able to see also behind me outside the protesters at the House of Commons. It was an issue which has taken up a lot of time here at Westminster, and the Prime Minister said it was only right that the government considered all the potential opportunities about what might happen for Brexit code, that there may not be a deal. The SNP leader Ian Blackford pushed her. He said, in his words, there had been a secret report which the UK government had commissioned on Brexit, which showed that Scotland would be one of the worst affected areas. He said it would be disastrous for Scotland if there was a no deal on Brexit.
Will the Prime Minister do today what our Brexit Secretary was unable to do in this chamber yesterday, and rule out a no-deal scenario on leaving the EU?
Yeah. Prime Minister!
I can confirm that what we are doing is working for the best possible deal for the United Kingdom. But it would be irresponsible of government not to prepare for all possible scenarios, and that's exactly what we're doing.
The Prime Minister went on to say that since the Conservatives had come to power in 2010, an extra 250,000 jobs had been created in Scotland because of the way the UK government had been operating the economy. As well as the controversial issue of Brexit, another controversial issue will be discussed in the Commons this afternoon. That is the rollout of so-called universal credit, which lumps a whole load of benefits into one payment. The Labour Party, supported by the Liberal Democrats and the SNP, will be calling for a pause in the rollout of that programme.
David, thank you. The world's first floating wind farm has started delivering electricity to the Scottish grid. The First Minister flew over the wind farm this morning to formally open it. Enough electricity will be generated for about 20,000 homes. The 5 giant turbines have been installed about 15 miles from Peterhead. There's been a slight rise in unemployment in Scotland. The jobless rate here rose 0.3% between June and August and stands at 4.1%, which is below the UK average. Celtic are in Champions League action later. Following their 3-0 away win to Anderlecht last month, thousands of fans have travelled to Germany to see them play Bayern Munich tonight. Alistair Lamont is there for us.
Well, around 6,000 Celtic fans have made the trip to Munich for tonight's match. Most of them will have tickets, either as part of the slightly over 4,000 official away allocation, or failing that, dotted among the home fans. The unlucky few who don't have a ticket for the what is a 70,000 sellout in the Allianz Arena will have to watch the big game in one of the city's bars. But regardless of where they're watching, you do sense a whiff of excitement about the prospect of watching their team pit their wits against one of Europe's big hitters.
Been in a few countries to see Celtic, but this caps it. You know, it's a beautiful city, an absolutely wonderful place.
It's good to come away and see these teams. We're glad to be at the big stage, play good teams. But as the gentleman there just said, it's just good to see Celtic, to be honest with you.
These fans have got several more hours of revelry ahead of them before the kick-off tonight, 8:45 local time. But there's plenty to keep them entertained. As for the match itself, well, how Celtic would love to take even a point from the match, but they do know just how good a team they're up against. Join me again for a further look ahead to the match on tonight's Reporting Scotland.
Construction work on Dundee's £80 million V&A museum is on schedule to be completed by the end of the year. The museum's been designed by the world-renowned Japanese architect Kengo Kuma, who's visiting the site this lunchtime. It's due to open in 2018. Well, what sort of weather are they going to get this afternoon? Let's get the forecast from Gillian.